What is going on, ladies and gents? How are you doing? Back again with another Call of Duty Modern Warfare weapon review video, and oh boy, do I have a special exciting video for you today, because today we're going to be talking about the FAL. That's right, because recently in the update, Activision just absolutely made the FAL super OP. That's right, because recently after they patched the Growl, instead now the FAL is the most OP weapon in the game. That's right, and I've been using this weapon for at least the past 2 days now playing Call of Duty, because prior to this I did not even use the FAL at all because I thought it was a useless weapon. But now after this patch, the FAL just absolutely melts the enemy. Like, let me explain to you something. So right here in this gameplay, I'm using the 3-round burst variation with it. So practically you can convert the FAL to an M16 from Call of Duty 4. And let me just say, with this class setup, this setup absolutely melts. Even if you're using the single shot feature of it, it still melts. However, I prefer to use the 3-round burst feature, just because with the 3-round burst you can really just completely melt the enemy from short to medium to long distances. However, for long distances it usually takes 2 bursts to kill the enemy, and it's a 1-shot kill to the head. But from medium and short distances, this is usually a 1 burst to 1 kill. And let me tell you something, if you're playing Warzone, I highly suggest using this class setup, because with this class setup, you can really just take on the enemy snipers in Warzone, and especially in buildings. So in a way, the FAL almost has become like the new pre-patch Growl, just because of just its insane ability to kill the enemy in just 1 or 2 bursts depending on the range. Now that they made the FAL super OP in Call of Duty, I'm assuming that it's going to overtake the Growl as the most used weapon right now in Warzone, just because with the Growl, since they buffed it, they decided to make the FAL more powerful. So that's of course a very, very big shocker for me. However, I knew from the beginning that eventually they were going to patch the Growl, but for them just to make the FAL super OP is just absolutely unfreaking real. So by using this class setup, it almost feels like Call of Duty 4 M16 Stopping Power Pro all over again, just because back in Call of Duty 4, the M16 was super OP, especially with Stopping Power. It was usually a 1 or 2 burst round kill, and it just seems like deja vu all over again. Now, the only downside of using this class setup is that it has quite a lot of kick. Now, with using the semi-auto version of the FAL, I found myself spamming the fire button on my controller very, very fast just to be able to get a quick kill on the enemy. And however, with using the 3-round burst, you don't have to spam the fire button as much as you have to if you're using the semi-automatic version of the FAL, just because the 3-round burst just does a super crazy amount of damage to the enemy, surprisingly. Now, if you're an old school Call of Duty gamer like me, you'll remember that when Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 first came out back in 2011, the Type 95 was the most OP weapon in the game, just because it was a 1 burst, 1 kill weapon, and that's how it feels like with the FAL 3-round burst variation, because it usually does a 1 burst, 1 kill from short to medium distances, and for long range distances, it usually does 2 bursts, 1 kill. Now, the only downside of using this 3-round burst variation class setup is for long distance battle, just because I found myself having to repeatedly spam the fire button on my controller just to be able to kill an enemy from long distances. Now, if you're playing Call of Duty Warzone, from rooftops with this class setup, you can easily burst an enemy, and you'll usually get a kill, because this class setup gives you a big advantage against the enemy. If they're like on the ground and you're on the rooftop, you can just easily burst the enemy in 1 or 2 hits, and bam, you automatically can down them. Now, the only disadvantage of using the FAL 3-round burst variation class setup is that for long distance battle, you'll also have to deal with the kick and the recoil of the weapon a lot, and you're going to have to find a way to try and control it so that you can directly, precisely hit the enemy from your 2nd burst or your 3rd burst as well. So it might seem frustrating at first for a long distance battle, but trust me, once you practice in multiplayer, you'll become much more comfortable with using the FAL, and it can actually give you more confidence for long distance battle. So now let me tell you the attachments that I used for this weapon. The first attachment that I use is the XRK Marksman Barrel, just because it increases your damage range, and I think it's very important to have the most amount of damage range for the FAL. And then I just chose to use the reflex sight, just because I'm not really a big fan of the iron sights on the FAL. And then I used the FSS Close Quarters stock, followed by the burst perk, and then I just slapped on the 30-round extended magazine for the gun, just to make it look like the M16 from Call of Duty 4 and the Type 95 from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Now, in terms of hip firing with this weapon, hip firing is mostly effective for very short range medium battle. It's not really effective for medium range battle, so I would not recommend trying to hip fire with this weapon for medium range battle. Only if you see the enemy very, very close to you, that's when you can try hip firing with this weapon. And also, the hip firing surprisingly kills the enemy also in 1 burst. So in conclusion, by using this class setup, you can absolutely just shred the enemy, and you can also survive more if you're playing domination, for example, or any other type of game mode for regular multiplayer. And for Warzone, this class will come in super handy. Trust me. Now you can also decide which reflex or which optic you want to use for the FAL, just because I think that using any optic for this weapon will be also as effective as using the reflex side. But that's been pretty much it here with this video, ladies and gents. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel. I work super hard on my videos, and y'all have a good one.